In this video, I will be sharing some insights with when it is best to consider doing a seminar or a workshop. When you know you want to do a discussion-based exercise, but maybe you don't want to do something with as much complexity as a tabletop exercise, there are these other mechanisms. So we'll talk a little bit about when it would be best to use a seminar or a workshop. What I hope you will get from this particular video is I will be explaining how a seminar or a workshop might be the most appropriate discussion-based exercise for certain scenarios. And we will talk through and develop SMART exercise objectives for an example for a workshop, and describe how to plan, conduct, and actually follow up after a seminar or a workshop. So let's talk right off the bat about when to use a seminar or a workshop. You want to potentially use a seminar if you are trying to build situational awareness, build awareness, or get information out to a particular segment of one of your publics, either the general public or even a more specialized, narrow niche of public. And what's important for you to think about is a seminar might be a way that you're going to be sharing information out towards a group of people. That may have one or two key speakers or people who will be presenting, and you might bring in a few different subject matter experts to be talking through a particular topic. And that would be a seminar where people are there because they want to learn, they're interested, and they just want to have more information about something that may be happening within their community. When you get into the other side of when you want to have a workshop is really where you want to gather some stakeholder or public input. A workshop will allow you to explore issues before you develop plans. It will help you understand where there may be some pitfalls that you need to be aware of. It will help build consensus among various different diverse groups. It can help you identify some current strengths as well as gaps and opportunities before you go down the path of conducting a more complex exercise. And you may choose to gather a very technical group of experts, not just some group of the general public, but maybe you might want to bring together a group of engineers or people who are very adept at certain types of operational elements. And maybe what you want to do in that type of a workshop is really capture the decision points for a specific policy or a procedure or a plan. Because workshops can be very effective to help you get the knowledge that you'll need to be able to create a specific output. The benefits of a workshop or a seminar. Let's use an example. So in this example, say we've got Central County. It's just a kind of generic county somewhere in the United States. It could be representative of just about any county. And say Central County has decided that they want residential feedback from the community members about emergency alert mechanisms and how they, as an emergency management entity, how should they send information about maybe a required evacuation. So the benefits of developing a workshop or a seminar is that you can get some direct community engagement. You can do face-to-face. You can have that opportunity to build some of those connections. It will also help identify the preferred communication methods. So in my previous example, we were talking about if you want to gather information, if you want to hear directly from the residents, would they prefer a phone call? Would they prefer text messages? Is there a different way that they would like to receive notifications and alerts? It will help reveal some barriers to receive an alert. So hopefully when you send your invites, you're getting people from lots of maybe some of the more vulnerable populations. How do you get information out to people who may have some form of a disability or maybe they're hearing impaired? What this can also do, because you're taking the time to engage with these members, is it will build public trust. It also supports inclusive planning to make sure you're thinking about all of those nuances for how you need to deliver your alerts and warnings. And it can dramatically improve the future warning and evacuation strategies. So let's talk about developing SMART workshop or seminar objectives. So no matter what type of exercise we're going to develop, that key pivotal element is to develop good, solid exercise objectives. And again, we want to use that SMART acronym. And in this application, it is simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and task-oriented. So what questions should be encompassed in your objectives is capturing what information do you need, who do you want to participate, what decisions or products should be the result, and how will success be measured. So I've got here some examples from that other scenario that I just described on the earlier slide, which is Central County that wants to get information about emergency alerts and warnings. So here might be three exercise objectives for a workshop. Maybe they want to collect feedback from at least 50 residents representing multiple neighborhoods regarding preferred methods for receiving emergency alerts. Objective 2, identify the top 5 barriers that may prevent residents from receiving evacuation information during an emergency. Objective 3, develop recommendations for improving alert and warning communications within 30 days following the workshop. After you have your exercise objectives nailed down, you want to, again, then develop a realistic scenario. A good scenario should reflect a credible local hazard, create the need for discussion and decision-making, be realistic and relevant, spark plausible conversations, focus the participants on the exercise objectives, narrow them in and make sure that you're getting that information that you set out to acquire, and then encourage problem solving and information sharing. There may be some new valuable information that could come from a well-established scenario that you didn't even account for in your exercise objectives, and that's just icing on the cake. So for Central County, this may be the scenario. It could be a wildfire scenario example. So a fast-moving wildfire is approaching several Central County communities during a period of high winds and extreme drought. County officials must rapidly communicate evacuation warnings and instructions to residents. Workshop participants will then discuss how they currently receive alerts, what challenges they face, and which communication methods would be most effective during the evacuation. So when you're conducting a workshop, I want to give you this kind of guidelines here. The recommended format would be something that would be maybe between 2 and 4 hours. You want to make sure that you're scheduling it in a venue that is easily accessible to the people that you're inviting. So maybe a community center, a school, or it could be in a meeting room, as long as there's make sure that lots of parking is available. Provide seating in round tables. That will encourage discussion, which is very critical for a workshop. Facilitators, you want to have more than just one person facilitating. You want to have neutral facilitators that can circulate throughout the room. They can answer questions. They can help guide some of the conversations at the tables and be note takers. And you'll want to make sure you have materials for a well prepared workshop. You want to have maps, discussion guides, polling tools, some flip charts. How are you going to record the feedback that the attendees are going to provide? So think of those things in advance and make sure that you've got any materials, even pens and the flip charts and all of those things, so that those groups can document what they're discussing and what information you want to be the takeaways. You want to incorporate breakout sessions and then have each of the groups appoint somebody to be the person to report out. That really ensures that the groups, knowing that they have to do a report out, it gives them a task. It becomes a task-oriented element that then they're going to take a little more weight involved with how they're going to discuss the breakout topics. So some of the breakout topics that in our example you might have would be, hey, discuss and what the preferred alert methods are. Maybe it's about evacuation information needs, communication barriers, what hasn't worked in the past, and how to go about reaching vulnerable populations. And then the report out, so you want each group to share their findings, and the facilitator will capture themes and recommendations. And that will be something that you can touch base on nearing the end as you're doing the wrap up. The expected deliverables. So during or following the workshop, you want to make sure you're really transparent and that you're sharing with the attendees, the participants, what type of deliverables may you be using this information for the Central Accounting workshops. So you might be developing a community communications needs assessment, prioritize communications methods, a list of barriers and challenges, recommendations for alerts and warning improvements, and maybe a draft communication strategy. So the following could be outputs that could be informed by or as a result from a workshop or a seminar. So Central County may end up developing revised emergency notification strategies, improved evacuation, messaging templates, multilingual communication plans, social media and alerting protocols, public education campaign recommendations. And you would want to make sure that you have those follow-up activities. So after the workshop, you don't want to have these, wonderful members of your community who spent their time and energy to share their ideas with you. You want to make sure that that you're circling back with them and letting them know how their information was helpful. And some of the things you're going to want to make sure that you can convey to them is that you've analyzed participant feedback. You have prepared an after-action summary report, even from the seminar and the workshop. Assign responsibilities for improvements and corrective actions and those things that need to be modified. Update emergency plans and procedures. Communicate the results back to the participant. I think this is the most important element, making sure you are accountable to them for their time that they spent to provide their feedback. And then schedule future exercises to validate those improvements. And maybe you rank them into a more complex type of exercise in the future. And so finally, the key takeaways, seminars and workshops are very valuable for building understanding, gathering input, and creating consensus. And they are especially effective when organizations need stakeholder feedback or before making a policy or plans or communication decisions. So these are all things to keep in mind for determining whether or not your exercise type would benefit from being structured as a workshop or a seminar.